Hello lovely people, and today we're gonna do something like this. We're gonna do exactly this actually, and I'm not gonna be showing on how to animate it properly yet, but what you're gonna see how to build this kind of setup, how to transfer it anywhere else, and how you can start building these grass setups for yourself. And then use it in other scenes. So there's going to be second part to this video. I'm sorry I didn't post for 2 months. I know it was so long, but I want to get back to this. So second part of this video coming soon, and then more videos afterward. I just got a new laptop, M.2 Max, and I want to test the Redshift on it. So that's going to be another video. And then I have videos why you should become 3D designer in 2023. So that will be probably, I don't know. Let's go. Alright, so let's start by importing from Bridge all the branch tree. I actually got the error, so I need to switch my node materials for preset. So I need to do it again. I can go and export from Bridge now, and now it's working. By the way, if you want to install this, you can find it on my YouTube Shorts, or you can just go customize palettes and use node material for preset. You drag it onto your board, and then you can keep switching quickly between your shader graph and node materials. So now that I have the shader graph, I don't want that actually, and I want to switch this material. So I'm just gonna highlight this material and go into Redshift, materials, tools, and convert to nodes and replace. So convert and replace, and now it automatically replaces this material with node. So when I go into the material, it actually is using node editor, which I find easier on the wrist. Okay, so we have imported 3, and we also have the material that is being converted to nodes. Now I'm gonna have to remesh because the material is in these tripolys, which basically means 3-sided polygons, and we want them to quadrangle. So we want a quad for better simulations, all kind of things we're gonna do to it. So I'm going to convert this by highlighting the tree branch and holding Alt, and you can find remesh here. You can find remesh here, or I have it out already. So Alt and remesh, and that will apply it to the tree branch automatically. It will remesh it for us. We can keep the density at 100. I think it's nice and even. So that works quite well. I won't be touching it more. So then I press C. What you can notice that we have some null that kept the Redshift tag, and then we have so I'm moving that Redshift tag back to the actual mesh, deleting that null and moving that outside as well. Now it's just a clean model with the Redshift tag. We can turn on the geometry displacement, and we can also look at that tree branch, how it's looking in our Redshift render view. So that's all fine. We can rotate it slightly. I'll just keep it upright like this, and we keep it in the dark. I found this powerful, especially with these growths. We're gonna get more light in, and the next thing will be importing the grass and putting them into null objects by group. So this will help us to keep it clear, and we're gonna be importing grass. So I'm just gonna go and have a look what kind of grass I have here. So I know I've not been using this one. I think this one is more interesting. So I'm going to import this one. So import straight away. Then I'm going to import the basket grass. But the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to highlight all these and move them into null. So I'll call it grass 1. Then I'm going to go and import another type, Alt G, and call it grass 2. And then I'm going to call in another type, bird of paradise. Also, I didn't use so many of these, so I'm just going to use like 4 randomly, and Alt G. And that's a grass 3. Now I had 3 different grass. It also imported 3 materials, which I can convert again with Redshift and go materials, tools, convert all materials to nodes and replace. So now when I click it, it's actually node material. So we don't have to deal with all shader graph. I mean, this is about your preference really. This is just the way I do it because I grew tired of the shader graph not being responsive for me to, drag nodes around and stuff like this. So I found node editor much friendly in that regard. Next we'll be cleaning it. Objects, we're gonna go here, tree branch. So tree branch, we have 3 grass patches, and I'm gonna move them away from our scene just so that they're not impacting the way we look. And we're gonna come up with the Redshift matrix. So now we have the branch, we remeshed it, converted to nodes, enabled displacement, imported the grass into null objects. Now we're gonna bring in Redshift matrix object. So again, you can go to Redshift, go objects and matrix scatter. And we will use this matrix objects to scatter grass over the tree log. So we highlight it, we say, I want to scatter over the object. So mode is object, and I want to use this one. So you drag it into that field. And now you see all those matrices being scattered over that object, and we see it represented by tree log having these little balls. So what are we going to do next? We need to tell it use, instead of optimize spheres, as you can see here, use the custom objects. So, and we're going to start with the grass. So I'm going to highlight the grass patch number 1, then go back to the object tag of that matrix. So not clicking on the matrix, I'm clicking on object tag, go into the particles, dragging all these here. I'm in the particles, and you can see we already have the beautiful grass being scattered on it. Now I'm just going to go into grass 2, clicking on the object tag, dragging it there. Now I'm going to go to grass 3, clicking on the object tag and dragging it there. There's a different scale proportion of these different grass patches. So what I can do, and because it's in nulls, I can scale these easily by just dragging. If I go into the scale mode, so I'm highlighting the grass tree, and I can just click anywhere and drag down, and that will scale it proportionally together with these. Now at grass 2, can make it smaller. Grass, can make this one bigger or same. Now they are some sort of similar. When I look at it back, they should be in a kind of similar fashion. So what I can do next, I can go into that matrix object and say that distribution will be absolutely random. So it won't be sequencing them from top to bottom. It will scatter them at random. And then also scale multiplier can go to 0.2, and that will give you smaller grass patches that are more reflective to the scale of the log. So I'm gonna now increase the count. So if I go to object, there is a count. So in Redshift matrix object, there is a count, and you can go to like 600, and you increase that count on that log, and you get these beautiful, fully covered logs, which they look very natural. I love this. The one thing is you can go to Redshift camera, and you can turn on the bokeh and just click on this dot here and select point on your render. Just click anywhere, and that will focus on that. And then if you decrease your aperture, you will see that you get that point focused, but everything else will be, and that's why you get these beautiful images. Now what you need to do is to actually go to that tree branch, right click it, go to the edit tags, and bring in Polygon Selection. Now Polygon selections are very powerful because we can select polygons on that tree branch. I'm going to turn off the matrix. So Polygon Selection, it's great because I can go and use fields now, and I can delete the freeze and just use spherical field. And we're going to use this spherical field all over. So if I click, if I look at this Polygon Selection, I can reduce the size of that field just so it's something more reasonable. Keep it on top. It's basically selecting all the polygons that are here. The way we can see it, we can go back to Redshift matrix scatter, and if we click on the Redshift matrix, there's a selection field, and we can drag that selection by having that tag just kind of go in here, and now you see we only scattering where the spherical field is, which is very powerful. Once you implement all the other things, we can keep that focus tag on. You see that you have part of the branch that is being scattered on. And by the way, this is just one single dome light, Creative Office from Grayscale Gorilla, that is illuminating this scene, and it's already looking pretty good. So now that I have the spherical field, all I want is actually for the grass to grow sequentially. So whenever I would be traveling with this vertical field, I don't want to be to this like just grass will appear. You know, you see like they're just appearing fully developed. We don't want that. So the thing we need to do, we need to highlight matrix actually. With plane effector, we're gonna want to affect a couple of parameters. I'm just gonna go to that plane effector. Now it's affecting the Y position. So that's why everything went away. I'm just gonna turn this off, and all I want to affect is actually the scale. I want to affect a scale and uniform. And if you go -1, it will disappear completely, because, you know, if the scale is 1 and we put a -1, there's nothing to be displayed. Right? So if it's like -0.5, there is half of that. So -1, nothing to be displayed. And we will reverse that by going into fields again, because there's fields in plane effector, and we drag that same field into there. But now you can see it's reversed, so it doesn't display anywhere. So only thing we need to do, we need to go into the clamp section here, and we're gonna go invert. And once you do invert, we've got that same selection, but you can see on the edges, you get that nice ramping. So you have smaller on the edges, and then you need to use actual remapping on the field to make this even more pronounced. So remapping on a field, as you can see, right? And so that inner offset, nice. And now I can make it bigger. We can bring in another element, which is going to be our vertex map. So we're going to right click, we can bring other tags, vertex map, and that vertex map again we can control with fields. Used fields on the vertex map, delete the freeze, and drag in our spherical field. And again, you see we using that one field to control so many things, which I think is super cool, because we control the scattering, we control the way, you know, our branch will be colored. And I have the material from the tree branch. So we have the albedo, we have all the roughness, bump map. So this is one material. I can click material, standard material, and I can do material layer. This is how we mix it. So this is a standard material. Base material is the wood, and the second material will be the layer color 1, and our mask will be vertex attribute, which is this map. So when I click this, there's an attribute name. You can drag this vertex map over. So if I highlight vertex attribute, you can see that vertex map is being here. It's using this vertex map to determine where is the wood material and where is the new material that we created. So I can go out color, and I can go layer color mask. Now, one thing that you can notice is that vertex attribute now have overlaying, but because of the fields being so big, we can control this by introducing ramp between the vertex attribute and the mask input, and this will narrow down that area where there is a log and when there is a, so we can increase that and then move this around. And as you can see, now we have only part of it being affected, and the rest is staying normal wood. So now when I move this around, as you can see, this will affect only this. Now the way we can improve this material, we can just go, I have some textures that we can use and drag them onto that base color, or some mossy. So mossy diffuse. So immediately we get that diffuse moss below it. So if I turn off the matrix, we're gonna have some sort of this material happening just below that. I'm gonna introduce a couple more. Texture 1, another one. So reflection roughness, and then displacement, and I have a displacement node. So now this is a displacement, and I have already displacement here. So the thing is, how do I do two displacements? If I already have like one material, you can go into displacement and you see there's a displacement blender, and I can go and do the same like we did with the material layer, we just go in the base input. It will be always this displacement of the wooden log. I'll drag this back, so I'll switch to that. But when it comes to that area being affected by the mossy layer, we want to use that texture from that moss. So we're just going to put it into input layer 1. Just going to drag it below it just so it makes more sense in terms of inputs. And how do we determine the blend weight? Of course, we're just going to use the vertex attribute again, which will help us to narrow that area between what kind of displacement we should use where. So now if I turn off the metrics object, you see I'm gonna get different displacement on this wooden log than I would get if I would have here. So now it's make even more sense, and I can again introduce new ramp which will control the way this displacement works. So I don't want this displacement to be that pronounced. So I'm just gonna go input. Yeah, this was my first day struggle. I'm like, where do I plug into the ramp? So blend weight, and I'm gonna control that ramp. I'm going to control how sharp this is going to be, that displacement edge of it. So I can do it even by just reducing that white to some sort of gray, and make it even more easy on the eye. Okay, so I have some sort of displacement happening here. And then I have so now see, it's more natural and gradual. So it's there's area in between that goes slowly, like the moss is growing. And as well, this is the same effect that we try to achieve with all the plants being scattered. And so there's no sharp edges. And okay, I think we've done what we could in this amount of time, and that's working really well, and I already like it. It looks crazy, the material looks crazy, but it's basically wooden material, mossy material, and then we have a vertex attribute that determines the masking between the displacement and also between the materials themselves. So it's actually very simple setup and easy to reproduce, and I hope this will help you tremendously with your different displacements and working with materials. And it looks nice, and it can be used in so many different ways. I want to show you one more setups later that's been inspired by Microsoft ads, which I saw on Behance somewhere, and it was beautiful. Okay, so now that I have it, I can press render, but you see if I render, it just goes crazy. And this is the reason why I didn't post this video before, because I was just like, what is happening? How did this happen? It just doesn't make sense this is just not the way. And if I go back here and play render, it makes sense. And if I do the bucket rendering, I was immediately confused. I'm like, how do I render video out of this? Because it just doesn't work. And then someone on Redshift forum was kind enough to point it out, like, did you organize it hierarchy, the hierarchy in the object manager? And I'm like, oh yeah, because I completely forgot that Cinema 4D thinks about stuff like, hey, I'm doing first thing, first this, then this, then this, then this, and it goes from top to bottom, and that will make a lot of difference when you try to render stuff. Now, the next thing you need to do is go to Redshift Matrix, go to Object, and Sources Objects Visible. You turn them off, and again, now this is the absolutely empty state I had before, and you have all these things. You drag it below the actual tree branch, and now you can render animations. So this was a lot of pain for me, and still is. It's just, I'm like, well, how do I? But Cinema see the tree branch, and then it will see the scatter. So it'll scatter on the tree branch, and if there is scatter first and after the tree branch, it doesn't work for cinema. Cinema needs to first introduce the tree branch and then you scatter onto it, and it makes all sense when you think about it, but it's not obvious if you don't know that, you know, cinema handles things from top to bottom in the object manager. So now we have this beautiful log. So what I did before, I was even using, I was recoloring the grass, but I pretty like the natural look to this. You can go into these materials and you can, the simple thing I would do, it was just like removing the albedo, and that will give you just a diffuse color that you can use however you want. So if you want to make it purple, then you can just make some of those purple, which it's fun to do. Always make things purple. And you can do the same with the other ones. You can just go show node editor, remove the albedo, and again make this the color to your liking. It's gonna be blue, and make this maybe less saturated blue, and then you can go to the last one. Sometimes the thing you can do as well, you can completely remove the material. You can create your own. You can go Redshift material standard, you apply it, you highlight all these grasses and you apply, you hit right apply, and it will apply to all of those. And then you can control this material by just going to subsurface and coming up with the color that you like more, and then you can apply texture to it, try to make it look more organic. So obviously this material gonna take to you can also go and apply a ramp, which is something that is interesting as well. So you go to a surface color, general, so Redshift to subsurface color. So we have the ramp into subsurface, and then you can select that purple to orange to yellow, and suddenly you have a weird ass plant that is just way more interesting than if you would have just the regular one color. So let's render this out. Let's create some nice double field. This is our full artwork. I'm just gonna put the focus on this one, or maybe on this nice little lit part. So this is interesting way to achieve these, and then I'm gonna show you how to actually animate these around like different things in real case scenarios. Like this is great for, you know, art installation. I actually saw installation in Prague where I got inspired. I think it was done by Ondřej Zunka, who did amazing concept of organic plants, and they've been all scattered in this dark. So we were basically standing in a dark room, and everywhere we saw these beautiful, you know, organic plants and mushrooms, and it was all beautiful. And it was because it was in the dark, so there was no backgrounds. It was just a nicely focused plant, and it looked very, very good. And that's where I came up with the idea, because before I usually put some sort of backdrop and lighting and different, but actually keeping it this simple, it's great for tutorial explaining. And as well, if you make series of these plants in the dark, they look really good. You can make a nice video out of that. I want to see it like used in a real scenario. So I'm going to show you how can we, you know, transfer all this and take it somewhere else. Because it's very simple. As you can see, there is a 3-branch, Redshift matrix, plane effector, spherical field, and then bam, 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 grass, grass, grass. So if I grab all of this and move it to other scene, it could be my setup that I scatter things onto. So it's very simple how you can then, once you build it, you can save it as a grass type 1, you know, folder, and then every time you want to use some sort of grass anywhere, and you, for example, like this, the color combo that we just did today, you can use it in your other projects so quickly. So that's what I like about it, how versatile it is. And because we using only one field, and we have the tags that we can quickly apply to anything in the other scene, we can quickly control how this grows and where this grows. And because we already set the growth, how it should look, wow, like this is fantastic. Well, this actually came out the best ever yet. So I did a lot of mistakes in those previous. I've done it so many times. I'm telling you, this simple tutorial, I've been struggling with it for months. So I actually didn't post that anything in 2 months, and yeah, stop talking. We're gonna edit this out anyway.